Expect the Unexpected While Prescribing Glaucoma Medications by Dr. Gauri Murthy. Dr. Gauri is the Chief of Glaucoma Services at Prabha Eye Institute and Vitala International Institute of Ophthalmology. She has extensive experience in managing refractory and difficult glaucoma, as well as in the management of glaucoma in infants and children. Several fellows have received their training in glaucoma under her, and she has guided the thesis of more than 20 postgraduate students. She is involved in a project called Nayana, which empowers rural and semi-urban ophthalmologists in providing glaucoma care since 2006. Welcome and over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Shoruba. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So, in medical management of glaucoma, we think that things have become routine, but we should always be on the guard. So, as Heraclitus once said, if you do not expect the unexpected, you will not recognize it when it arrives. So, it's very, very important to watch out for potential side effects and complications of medical management of glaucoma. And I shall go through small case snippets. And this is not meant to be a comprehensive lecture about all the side effects that one can encounter, but some of the important side effects that one could encounter when you're managing a patient with glaucoma. So this is the first case illustration of mine. This patient is a 68-year-old retired bank official, and he has no systemic issues. He was a bilateral angle closure glaucoma patient who had undergone PI. He was on medical management, timolol and dorzolamide and travoprost. He developed a significant cataract in the right eye. And so we took him up for right eye cataract and foldable IOL. So on the OT table, once the monitors were plugged in, the pulse rate was 45 and our anesthetist was quite shocked. And he said, this is 45, what's wrong with this patient? I need to have a look at his ECG and other things. So immediately we've seen this happen in so many patients of ours without realizing beta blockers are common causes of sinus bradycardia. So the patient initially, when you put them on beta blockers, they would not have given you any history of cardiac illness. Like this patient of mine, he had no systemic problems whatsoever. But as they go on using the beta blockers, even timolol 0.5% topically, the amount that gets into the systemic circulation is enough to cause sinus bradycardia. So one should be very wary that this is one of the things that can occur when a patient is on long-term treatment with timolol. So it makes sense once in a while to check the pulse of the patient. There was another instance where the patient said, I won't be able to come in the next few months for a follow-up. And I asked him why. And he said, I'm scheduled for a pacemaker. And then he said that I have sinus bradycardia. That is what my cardiac specialist told me. And there's nothing else wrong, but he wants to implant a pacemaker. Again, there, timolol was the cause. So these are very extreme instances, but please be wary. And also one should check and elicit symptoms. People deny that they have asthma. They think that in their childhood, if they have had the asthma, now they don't have it, so they don't have bronchial asthma. So you should observe patients for breathlessness or wheeze when they're sitting in front of you or when they are putting their chin on the slit lamp. You can hear their breath. So be observant. And if they have breathlessness or wheeze, check if they are on timolol and take it off. Many times you will solve this problem for the patient. They will not volunteer this information. You should check and elicit the symptoms. So that is one thing. Another small event happened just a few days back in the pandemic, in the lockdown. There is this patient of mine who is a diabetic and hypertensive. He has angle closure glaucoma. He was on topical timolol and bimetoprost, and one of his eyes had very advanced glaucoma. So he had called up and he said, I will come for a checkup, and he came. So this was during the lockdown. So he came with a driver and nobody accompanied him. And this patient, after he came, he was being worked up in the optometrist room. And when the optometrist was checking the vision, she realized that the patient was not alert and kept on repeating the same sentence over and over again. So she was checking the vision, and the 6/24 line, he kept on repeating it. And when she asked him some more questions, sir, how are you? How are you doing? He didn't respond at all. So immediately she came and called me, and we checked his vitals. He was a little incoherent. He was not responding to our questions. Pulse was okay. Blood pressure was okay. And immediately we checked the glucometer random blood sugar. And what did we find? His blood sugar was 38. So he had severe hypoglycemia, and we immediately put an IV line. We started 25% dextrose IV, and he quickly recovered. And then the anesthetist who was there took over the medical management of the patient, and he became all right within a couple of minutes. Ophthalmic timolol treatment can cause altered hypoglycemic response. So this case report, which was way back in 1983, tells that clearly. So in our patient also, the typical hypoglycemic reactions characterized by sweating, uneasiness, and all that are not there. So it is just a changed mental status, which is there as a symptom of the hypoglycemia. So we should warn the patients who are diabetic that their hypoglycemic response may vary, and then they should be aware of this. So this is something that we should keep in mind. So this is another patient of mine, a very meticulous gentleman who was an ex-civil service person. So he was a patient of normal tension glaucoma, hypertensive and diabetic on 10 years on treatment. He had moderate glaucoma in the right eye and mild glaucoma in the left eye. He was on treatment with latanoprost. So because the intraocular pressure was starting to go up, I added brimonidine in his case. So 1 month later, he came for a review, and wife said, doctor, somehow he is very withdrawn, and he also was very listless, and he was not communicating, as enthusiastically as before. So what was happening? Brimonidine. I had started this patient on brimonidine. It is a common cause of central nervous system depression, the activity, and it can cause mild depression in the elderly. So one has to elicit these symptoms. One has to look for change in the patient's behavior. So otherwise this can be missed by the patient or the attender. They will not attribute it to the eye drop that you gave. In their dreams, they will not think that one small eye drop can cause this kind of a change. So you should be the one who will look out for this and should remove the medication if this is causing it. So another instance is a red eye, which is non-resolving in a patient with glaucoma. This was a patient who came for a second opinion. He was a pseudophakic primary open angle glaucoma patient. He was on timolol and travoprost and brinzolamide and brimonidine combination eye drops to his eye. He had a red eye since 3 months, had tried olapatidine, loteprednolone, FML. His local practitioner, ophthalmologist, had given all these things, but no response. So look at the patient, you see this excoriated skin lesion on the lid and lot of papillae and follicles on the upper lid palpebral conjunctiva. So many patients develop allergy, and this is very, very significant with brimonidine. And the combination drop of fixed drug combination of brimonidine, brinzolamide is very particularly the culprit for this kind of a delayed onset allergy. So please be on the lookout. This makes patient, become non-compliant to drops, and it will lead to a vicious cycle where they are given steroids, which can increase the pressure. Unless you remove the offending agent, the red eye will not resolve. So be very, very careful. Look at the skin around the eye when you're touching the eye. If it is papery, it's not the usual skin texture, be wary. This could very well be an allergy. So another patient with a primary open angle glaucoma, once we diagnosed him, they started him off on latanoprost eye drops once daily in both the eyes. He called the clinic 5 days later, and he complained of pain, redness, and photophobia. We said, please come, sir. We would like to have a look at you. And what do we see? So very, very faint scars are there on the cornea, which tell you that this patient has had herpetic keratouveitis earlier. If you don't look at them, and if you're not alert, once you give them a PG analog, you can have a patient who comes back with reactivation of herpetic keratouveitis. So look at the cornea very carefully before starting a PG analog on a patient. So another patient of mine, a lady, she had uveitis, anterior uveitis in both in the eyes, and one eye more than the other. And her pressures were very high with maximal tolerated treatment. That was dorzolamide with timolol and brimonidine. She was intolerant to Dimox. And she was positive for cytomegalovirus on the AC traps, and all other anterior uveitis investigations were normal. She was on systemic valganciclovir, and the anterior uveitis completely resolved, but the IOP remained in the 30s. And this patient was very unwilling for surgery. So we told her that there might be a problem, but we will try a prostaglandin analog. So I added bimetoprost. So immediately after adding bimetoprost, within 2 days, she came back with reactivation of the anterior uveitis. So you can see that uveitis, which is quiet, which is resolved, though prostaglandin analogs are not an absolute contraindication, it's relatively contraindicated, and you should always be alert to the possibility of a reactivation, and especially viral uveitis. These uveitis can relapse after starting prostaglandin analogs. And there are a lot of cosmetic issues with prostaglandin analogs, the increased lash length and the periocular pigmentation. When you're treating patients unilaterally, be very careful, because this kind of a difference can become very marked and it can be cosmetically embarrassing for the patient. The newer drug on the block, that is netarsudil, sometimes can cause hemorrhages. The subconjunctival hemorrhages like this and hyperemia are common side effects. It can be seen up to 12% in patients who are on netarsudil, and hyperemia in up to 50% of patients is seen. And sometimes if there is corneal vascularization, like in this patient, even corneal hemorrhages have been reported. We should not forget that the additives themselves may be a cause for a problem. So very rarely benzalkonium chloride, patient may be allergic to it. So whatever topical drop you give, the patient develops an allergy. So in such patients, be alert and switch over to alternate preservatives or preservative-free formulation. So this is just a bird's eye view. One should be aware of the systemic side effects, the local side effects, and the interaction of our glaucoma medications with the general medications that the patient is taking.